Okay, yeah, okay. There you go. Number 5. All right, Karen.
Hi.
All right, we now have a quorum.
Okay.
Right. So with that, we're going to call the meeting to order, and I guess Eunice, you're going to announce that we're recording the meeting.
Yes, the meeting is now being recorded.
All right. So for those members of the council who are online, you can see hopefully on the screen the agenda for the day. And do we have we'd like to get an approval for the agenda. So somebody make a motion and then somebody second, and we'll say aye, hopefully.
I approve the agenda.
All right. Any objections to the agenda?
I second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hey, all right. All right, let's get rolling here. Okay. All right, well, now we have I'm going to turn it over to Shannon so she can introduce the new assistant regional directors. Shannon, take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here and see everybody again. I'm very pleased to report after 6.5, 7 months of being down positions in the region, we were finally able to appoint an assistant regional director in our individual and family division, as well as in our private division. Tim Brazel has been appointed as the assistant regional director for private. Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
How you doing? It's very nice to see all the members again. I think I've actually met most of you when I presented previously in my former role as the director of CCH Community Companion Homes, but it's great to see you all again.
And we have Tyrone Mechanico, who is the IFS, Family and Individual Support Assistant Regional Director. And I'm pleased to introduce him. Tyrone, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyrone Mechanical. This is my first time meeting you all. I come from the North region where I worked in IFS as the Behavioral Health Clinical Manager. I work with respite family support, and I also supported the helpline. So it's great to meet you all, and I look forward to working with you all as well.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome both.
Nice to meet you guys.
So I guess one of the ways we can do this is we can go, I'll go by little pictures at the bottom of my screen here and see if any council members have any questions for either Timothy or Tyrone. So I'm starting on my left, and Karen, you're up first. Any questions for Timothy and or Tyrone?
You're on mute, Karen.
You're on mute, so.
My regular question is, what are we going to do about the employment situation to get more people? Because I got an approval for my son to get 10 additional hours because my husband had a surgery, and I have tried for 2 months to find somebody and have not been able to do that. So all that, approval goes for naught. So that's always my number one issue, and it just doesn't seem to be getting better.
So I know, Karen, you've brought it up several times at the meetings that I've attended with you. And as you know, it's a state and federal struggle. I think there's some pockets of the state that struggle worse than others. And I know that there's some agencies that better at doing recruitment than others. I mean, that's not gonna, put a quick solution in place. At some point it might help if you and I had a conversation offline. Maybe I can find out what providers myself or Tim may have no knowledge where a provider is having easier time recruiting people.
So the problem for me is I'm self-direct. And the reason I'm self-direct is because my son is diabetic and epileptic, and he's on a very complicated pump system. So I've tried agency people before, but it just has not worked out. And also he's a real ABA type kid. So I've been able to recruit ABA people without using the agency so I can pay them more. And I've been able to get some good people. but that's really hard to do these days. So
Mhm.
that's the issue. It's kind of like, and I know everybody has medical issues and whatever, but you know, if you don't know how to work the pump, you can kill my son. And that's what I'm so fearful of. So I do want people that, can learn. It's not that you have to be a nurse or anything, but you have to be able to learn. And a lot of times they're just not there. It's just too dangerous.
I definitely hear and understand what you're saying, but I would love to have a separate conversation where we could talk more in depth. I would just be curious about some of the recruitment efforts you put in and just spend some more time talking to you about that. I know you've also advocated for our other families as well that have struggled. And I think the last meeting or actually my first meeting, you had brought that up. And no sooner the next day, I had like gotten a couple calls from families, just with their children who had they graduated and were struggling finding day programs. They had to go to work. Some of them single parents, which leads into some of what Chuck has been advocating for, which I'm sure you'll talk about later, payment of guardians. But it's been tough. And I think some of it is knowing, in the region, we may know where a provider's having an easier time recruiting, because that's often discussion that we're having with our providers for those that are using a provider. The private hire, that's a different situation.
Yeah, it's
The other-
Marina. Can I just jump in? I think, Karen, you're doing yourself a disservice a little bit, because your situation is, even though it's maybe unique in some ways, it's also not unique, because the same stories are going across everywhere. And there's group homes where every staff member has been doing double shifts for who knows how long. And so, there's a bill up in the legislature to improve the waiting list. And 5 years ago, we would have been jumping up and down as though that was the biggest problem. And oh my gosh, they're finally listening and getting ready to solve it. And today, that is the second biggest problem, because the staffing crisis has risen to the top as the biggest problem. So I'm with Karen that it's much more of a universal issue, and it's not just because her son is particularly challenging, although that is certainly challenging. It is a broader problem than that. So I'm with her.
And it's why I haven't been able to use the agencies, because they have never been able to provide me with the kind of person that understands the seriousness of, my son is not the kind of the level diabetic. He's all over the place. And it's just, it's nerve-wracking for me. I always tell people I haven't slept in 24 years, at night, through the night. So it's just one of those things where, and we're talking school nurses as well, that have almost killed him a few times. So that's why the agency thing has never been okay for me. And also because I can pay more. But, and Shannon, I probably sent those people to you. Because
Probably, but that's okay. That's what I'm here for.
This lady's on, call her. But it's a huge issue for everybody. You're absolutely right, Marina.
All right. So let me go on. Gil, did you have any questions for Timothy or Tyrone?
No, I don't have any questions right now.
All right. Lori?
Not
Questions,
really, other
comments?
than welcome. And then also I guess, actually, of course, echoing Karen and Marina, my son attends a day program and then has some res dollars to go out in the, in the community as well. And all the agencies are also suffering. I recently retired from a job in a family center, and part of my responsibility was to call around different agencies to see what the status was, and possibly sending graduating students their way. And it's the same thing across the board. It is just so hard, and especially if they need to have a nurse on site, or God forbid, one-to-one nursing, that's even bad. And what we hear from the agencies is, they get 5-6 people set up an interview. And they're lucky if one shows up, and typically nobody even bothers to call them. So whether they're working another job, maybe their primary job right now in overtime, because where did all these people go? That's the only thing that kind of would make sense. My only question is, I would like to know if we can get an update on the respite. That's kind of like that 30-day type of thing for the adults as well as for the children. So if you could include that and your conversation. I'd appreciate that.
Tyrone, do you want to give an update on our respite situation?
So is she referring, because I know we have our 24/7 respite in Meriden, but she mentioned 30 days, so I didn't know, and were you talking about something specifically towards respite?
Yeah, not the ones that, not the respite centers where you have the weekend, but more the extended, let's say a parent was going to have surgery or there was some, emergency going on in the home, so that it could be more than a weekend situation if families are in crisis. And again, I think my understanding is the children's one that they're looking at or going to do is enough, but I think the adult one is. And then also the step down unit, kind of, I don't know if I'm using that terminology, but ones that are coming out from the hospital.
So I'll speak to
Sure.
our 24/7 respite that we have at our
Okay.
Meriden campus. And usually, when we refer families to that respite center, we have to make sure like it's someone that has a discharge plan, so we know that they're going to be returning back home or to a placement. So if it was someone that was a complete emergency and they didn't have a placement or anywhere to go, then we will be looking for an alternative setting. But at any point in time, you can talk with your case manager and say you want a referral to the 24/7 respite center. No one's precluded from being referred to that respite center, as opposed to our respite centers in the West region. We do those visits quarterly, and families are entitled to 3 visits out of the 4 quarters. Shannon, I didn't know if you wanted to speak in regards to the step down unit
Sure.
and provide
Yes.
additional information about that.
Yes. So I don't know if the step down unit is at our Newington campus on Hartford Regional Center. Right now it's filled to capacity. Basically, if someone wants to make a referral there, we still refer even though there's no openings. The biggest challenge right now that we're having, and I can speak specifically for the West region, and I know this is an issue in the other regions, people have gone in and the struggle is getting them out. So they may be ready for discharge, but we have nowhere for them to go. They can't either return to the family home. I have 2 individuals now that we're working on getting them into their more permanent setting, but it's been a struggle for a variety of reasons. I have one individual, the residential placement is ready, but we need to have a day program. And we're struggling finding a day program for her. So again, and that's all related to the staffing crisis.
Yeah.
So that's up and running and very active, and it's always filled, but it's a great resource. It would be great to see more throughout the state. It's really being used.
Okay. Okay, it's good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Marina, any questions for Timothy or Tyrone?
Yeah, actually, so for Tyrone, I'm wondering, are you getting involved with the CELN project, the employment one, which which I think is actually super important as well, getting as many people to the extent they want to be and are able to employed?
So just to answer your question, I hope to get involved with that. I'm not completely familiar with it, but as I continue to get acclimated into my new role, I'm sure it's something that I will definitely be getting into.
Super, hope so. There are a lot of there are like subgroups. I'm a parent member of one of them, and there are like 6 CELN subcommittees, and it's hopefully going to create a lot of difference in letting a lot of our individuals become more employed or better employed. So I think it's going to be lots of fun, and hopefully this.
Marina, thank you. Trevor, I think, is going to be talking more about that today.
Yep.
So it's great to have him here. And just so you know, Tim and Tyrone have only been on board 2 weeks.
Yeah. So step up here. Come on, get going.
Yeah, really. Let's
They're
get
working,
going.
let me tell you.
All right. So we're now at the point of the agenda where Eunice was nice enough to send out the minutes from the prior meeting. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review them. If we could get, if you need time to review it, fine. If not, if somebody would make a motion to approve the prior minutes and then a second, we can vote on it, and then we can move on to Trevor. Anyone?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. Trevor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm actually going to focus on customized employment today, but I can provide a little bit of an update on the sound working groups, just if everyone's interested, just to provide a little background. And actually, we actually talked a little bit about it with our internal transition advisor meeting with Tyrone today. So I know that he was able to get a little information there, and I'm sure you'll participate. But SOUND stands for the State Employment Leadership Network. It is a group through ICI and the University of Massachusetts that works to bring together different state DD agencies who are working towards employment first, which is basically the idea that employment should be an option available to all individuals if they would like to work. And we have been a member of SOUND for a while, but there was a brief period where the state was, and specifically the department, was not a member of SOUND, and we rejoined within the last 3 years. And part of that was SOUND looked at our employment and day services, and they delivered a finding and observations report specifically on employment to make to show us what we're doing really well, and then the areas where we need to work on to make sure we're not disincentivizing employment for the individuals that we serve. And to dive into this, the department created these committees. The report is organized into 7 sections, and so 7 committees were created with an oversight committee, and they were tasked with diving into their section of the report, bringing together different stakeholders, including individuals, family members, DDS staff members, provider staff members, advocacy agencies, to come together and look at that specific section of the report, get information and guidance, and then to make recommendations on how we can improve the gaps that they identified in our system. And so there have been already a lot of changes that have come through that. A lot of changes specific to our funding, our one-time employment incentives, a lot of internal training that's now available to our staff. But what I will put out there is we're always interested in individuals and families who would like to join. We also did just start a new transportation work group, which came out of that committee. Came out of all of the committees because each committee identified transportation as a barrier to employment. And so we created a separate working group that also brings together different state agencies to discuss transportation. And I will share my email in the chat afterwards. So anyone who is interested in participating in some of those, our goal is to bring together all different stakeholders. So we're always more than welcome to add members. But I'm actually here today specifically to talk about customized employment. And I have a brief presentation that I'd like to give. And just a little background on customized employment. It is a service that has existed in the state for a while now. But we have recently been working to offer the service in an expanded form with the Department of Aging and Disability Services to make sure that we have the capacity to serve individuals across the state. And so I will give some background on that, but that's what I'm here to talk about today. And I don't know if I said this, but I am a transition advisor within the Employment and Day Services Division of DDS. So what is customized employment? Customized employment is an alternative method of finding competitive integrated employment that focuses on the strengths, skills, and abilities of individuals with significant disabilities and the unmet needs of employers. It is highly structured, a person-centered process, and it's carried out over time in 3 separate phases. It serves as a separate service model with more intensive and creative and specifically modified supports to help the individual achieve their self-directed employment option. And the service is completely job seeker driven. An individual completes customized employment services when they've been successfully placed in a competitive integrated employment position, and the individual then transitions to natural supports or an individual supported ISC service. In Connecticut, customized employment is an interagency service with the Department of Aging and Disability Services Bureau of Rehabilitation Services, ADS BRS. Some people might know it as DOORS as well, their old name, and DDS, as well as the State Department of Education. Customized employment services is provided by both ADS and DDS. And just to make note, the Bureau of Education Services for the Blind, BESB, is also a part of ADS. So those individuals are also included in this service. So what does CE actually look like? How can it look? The customized employment process is meant to be carried out over time. The employment service, this employment service approach, it's very comprehensive and it's designed to ensure that the job seeker is the primary driver of the outcome obtained. Customized employment services is a time-limited service and it does not affect a DDS individual's annual budget. Individuals who I keep referring to individuals as job seekers, but those are the individuals that we serve, and they continue with their current community activities while they're engaging in the CE process. When the job seeker becomes employed and finishes the customized employment process, they can still continue their desired community services when they're not working in their employment position that they obtained. And this service looks different for every job seeker. This may mean in engaging in customized employment for 2 days a week and then continuing one's regular services for the remaining days over the period of a few months. When the individual becomes employed and has finished customized employment, they will then work potentially 2 days a week and engage in their current service for the remainder of the week. Now, again, this service looks different for every individual job seeker. It's a truly customized approach. So some individuals may engage in customized employment for more than 2 days a week with a desired outcome of being employed more than 3 days a week after they finish the customized employment process. This may not.
Can you just, I mean, I love the slides and anything, but can you give us an example of like what happens with a customized, or say you decide, the kid is into pets and he's going to open a pet sitting, whatever. So what does that mean? Like who does
Yeah,
what?
so I'll go into that in just a minute. I'm actually going to go through the exact process, and the job discovery process will cover all of that piece. I'll go to that slide next just to make sure we answer that question.
Okay.
And I'm done with this slide for the most part. The main intent of this slide is that the intent of customized employment is to allow for blended services so that customized employment can be so that individuals can participate in their current service while engaging in customized employment, and then they can also continue their current service once they become competitively employed. And I'm going to skip around a bit. I'm going to come back to this slide about who is CE for and go into a little bit about what customized employment is. So as I showed before, it's a 3-phase process starting with job discovery. During discovery, the CE certified staff member, which is an important note, only staff with an active customized employment certification from an accredited source can offer this service. So that CE certified staff member spends time with the job seeker, his or her family, their friends, their extended family, and in the community to get to know the individual and gain a more in-depth understanding of the job seeker's interests, their likes, dislikes, knowledge, skills, strengths, and abilities. The focus of this phase, job discovery, is not to find a job. Instead, it's just to engage with the job seeker and his or her extended support system to identify up to 3 areas of interest in which employment might be explored in the community the job seeker is able to access. Discovery activities may include, but are not limited to, observation of the job seeker at home, interviewing family members, friends, and other significant individuals in the job seeker's life, engagement with the job seeker in community-based or family activities, as well as coordinated informal job shadows or work trials based upon the job seeker's previous exposure to the world of work. 3 essential topics are explored in this process, which are the job seeker's benefit status, the ability to access transportation, as well as potential worksite supports that are needed. Information that's learned during the job discovery phase is compiled into a discovery report, which is used to create a visual resume and a customized employment plan that will guide the remainder of the customized employment process. And sufficient time and interaction is a necessary component of discovery because discovery is not finding a job. It's just getting to know the job seeker. And evidence-based practices indicate that the average time frame for the first phase of customized employment is over a 5 to 7 week period. Now, the next phase is job development, negotiation, and placement. And this refers to the implementation of the actual customized employment plan that was developed during job discovery. Job development is pursued based on the approach and the essential features of employment agreed to by the job seeker and supported by the job seeker's delivery team that are involved in the customized employment plan. During this phase of service, the customized employment certified staff member and the job seeker will approach employers and businesses that are identified in the customized employment plan together. A list of job tasks that fit the job seeker has been developed to offer potential employers when the unmet needs of a business identified in job development match the job seeker's strengths and interests. Potential support needs will be identified in advance and are revised for each specific workplace to account for the unique characteristics when negotiating a customized position that meets both the needs of the employer and the needs of the job seeker. The last phase of customized employment, which is post-employment supports, refers to the on-the-job support services that may be necessary to support the individual job seeker during the initial training and stabilization of their placement, and extended supports for job seekers who will require job coaching to maintain skills learned and job retention. Once a job seeker is employed, they'll transition to individual supported employment, ISE services, or natural supports, and this will allow the individual to access the supports and services as necessary by an employment specialist who can provide training and supports as needed to assist the individual in their position once they've finished the customized employment process. Now, I do want to note that as of January 2023, there are approximately 30 provider organizations qualified to provide customized employment services, with about 60 certified staff members in the state. Not all of these certified staff have begun serving customized employment because of provider staffing limitations, which we have discussed already today. And staff, like I said earlier, need to have a customized employment certification from an accredited source in order to provide the service. So that is part of the reason for that capacity limitation within customized employment. The ADS DDS Customized Employment Project Team has been offering certification courses that are free to provider agencies for their provider agency staff members, and been offering this course to certify staff members since the end of 2021, and will continue to offer the course as we work to increase capacity of both agencies to offer the service for the individuals that we serve. There are more provider staff that are graduating from our certification courses in February. We actually have about 25 more provider staff who will be graduating in February, and an estimated 40 who will be graduating at the end of June, because we have 2 more courses that are starting in February. There are some capacity limitations for the service, and individuals may have to wait for a provider with the capacity to provide customized employment supports after they've been recommended for customized employment and the team has initiated the process. And we're just putting that out there to be very honest, that there might be a tiny bit of time in between there, but the capacity limitations have been getting much better as we see more staff across the state become certified in customized employment. Now, I do want to quickly go back to this slide to address who is customized employment for. So customized employment is a good strategy for those who need more intensive support than a typical individualized or group model, and who may need to utilize more intensive discovery strategies for career development and job direction. Customized employment is effective for individuals with complexities that make it difficult to utilize traditional job search strategies. If an individual meets those requirements, then DDS case managers may also consider whether the job seeker fits into any of the sorry, I'm getting myself mixed up a little bit. The one point that's important to make here is that there are a variety of paths that DDS job seekers can take to gain employment and to go through the customized employment process. And some of those are just our employment transition services, group supported employment, individualized employment supports, and there are also BRS employment models like trial work, work attachments, ISTPPs, and on-the-job trainings. An individual who's tried one or more of these individualized competitive employment or supported employment models without success and who may need more intensive supports to achieve employment may be a good candidate for customized employment services. And again, it's very important to note that there is no specific path to customized employment services. Rather, the service is an option that should be explored after an individual has tried other employment services and it's been determined that more intensive, specifically modified and individualized support is needed to achieve competitive integrated employment. So I do have a quick video that I'd like to show. And this video is Emma. She is one of our customized employment job seekers who is going through the process. I do want to note that this was recorded similar to how this is being recorded now. So you can see Emma in the little box on the bottom, but the screen was being shared and the slides will change in this 5-minute video. So you won't see Emma up and big like you might see me, but you will see her and my colleague Daryl who led this discussion. And this is a short clip, like I said, and it's from our 4th Tuesday forum on innovative options. We presented on customized employment at the 4th Tuesday forum in November.
Is anyone hearing anything?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not. All right.
Visible well?
Yeah.
You see how it is. Um,
What are we supposed to be seeing or
on
hearing?
the right is customized employment.
So I just paused the video. Like I had said, you're supposed to be, the screen will slowly change to go along. This is an example of Emma's visual resume, but you should be hearing Emma talking about her experiences. I think right when I paused it, she was talking about the differences between her trial work experiences and customized employment. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if they were able to hear the video? Because if not, I can move on to a different piece. Okay, I will also make sure that this is available afterwards. The 4th Tuesday forum should be available shortly on our website. Our IT team is getting ready to post it, so I can always make sure that that's sent out afterwards for those who aren't able to hear. So a big shout out to Emma, I have to say, for coming to the Fourth Tuesday Forum and talking a little bit about her experience. She is, like I said, she's currently in the customized employment process now. And I wanted to also share a little bit of some feedback we got from Emma's mom. And this was also discussed. We read it in the Fourth Tuesday Forum, but Emma's mom did not actually present it herself because she wanted Emma to go to the Fourth Tuesday Forum and be able to present on her own. And she did a fantastic job. But she did share a little bit of her perspective, and we thought it might be good to share here today. So
is
she's-
everybody getting it but me? I can't see a thing and I can't hear a thing.
Oh, well, the video's over now, but I can send you,
Oh.
I apologize for the technical difficulties with the video. I'll make sure there should be a link to the video, the actual full length video shortly on the DDS website. So I can always follow up with, I think it's Eunice that I would follow up with, who sends out all of the information.
Send it right to us. I would love to see it.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'll make sure that I do that. This happened in the last meeting I had too, where it was a few people, I don't know what, there's something with the technology. Sometimes it doesn't work in our favor.
Charles,
but-
did it work for you? Charles, did it work for
Yeah,
you?
Karen, some couldn't hear, but some of us did.
Oh, okay.
Trevor will send it
Yeah.
out. Don't worry, you'll get
All
a
right.
copy.
All right, thank you.
And so quickly, I'm just going to read a little bit of what Emma's mom said. She said that her greatest hope for Emma is to live a happy, independent, and a fulfilling life. And I'm going to read it like she said it because I'm changing the tense. When we heard that Emma was eligible for customized employment, there was a tremendous, tremendous sense of relief. We celebrated the news. During her trial work experience, it was clear that her strengths were not always highlighted. It was also clear that Emma struggled with social communication that led to misunderstandings. Emma wanted to do well during her last trial work experience, and she wanted so badly to please her employer. Unfortunately, she was not able to demonstrate mastery of the skills necessary to move forward with the employment. The answer was customized employment. That is why we celebrated when we received the news that Emma was eligible. Understanding her strengths and contributions to potential employers, her needs, all the strategies that need to be in place for success that were not available during other experiences, and her interests like videography work, graphic design, and volunteering make up the entire customized employment experience. A job that is well matched to her interests and abilities with reasonable accommodations could make a big difference in her ability to be included in the workforce. So that is all that I have to talk about on customized employment. I do just want to quickly share that the first step in pursuing customized employment is to talk to your case manager. And I also, like I had said earlier, customized employment is an interagency process between ADS and DDS, including the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services and the Bureau of Education Services for the Blind. So if individuals don't have a DDS case manager, which I don't think that would happen to anybody on the call today because this is one of our DDS RAC meetings, but you can always contact your voc rehab counselor too for ADS individuals. You can always reach out to your case manager if you have any questions about customized employment. You can also always reach out to the Employment and Day Services team, and we're always here to assist you and your case manager if they have questions about this innovative service option. And I apologize that my colleagues weren't able to present with me today. They are sick today. I was supposed to be presenting with a few of my Employment and Day colleagues, but there's 3 of us in our division, and then we have our director, and we are always there to support the customized employment process if necessary. And I will leave it there in case there are any questions. I'm not sure how this works, if I'm supposed to wait. Would just like to extend a thank you. Thank you for letting me come and talk about customized employment today.
Well, Trevor, thank you for coming in and presenting, and it was a very good and excellent presentation. What I'm going to basically do is go to the council members and just call on them and see if they have any questions for you. Marina, you're up.
Hi, Marina. I know we've worked together
You're
in
on
the
mute.
sound groups before.
Marina, you're on mute. You're still on mute. Nope. There we go.
Whoops. Sorry. Okay, off mute. Sorry about that. Yeah, Trevor, you know what? You and I had we're talking about a phone call, and then I think I completely forgot. So let's maybe make a plan to do that anyway. I think I have more questions than we have time for. is it not, I sort of struggle with some of what makes this different from a well-crafted regular employment placement, because so many of the things you describe should be done anyway. And so I like, should not everyone's interests be considered? Should not everybody's strengths and weaknesses also be explored, et cetera, et cetera? So I think I'm very curious about what it was that was the magic difference for Emma that did not work out in her other placements. Part of my impression of this is the job carving piece that you didn't really talk about here. And I'm wondering if that was a part of that. And,
Yes,
or
and
is that no longer a piece
No,
of customized employment?
it is a piece of customized employment. Oftentimes, the certified employment staff member is negotiating a job that might not be a position already. They're working to create a specifically modified job that benefits the employer and the needs that they have, but also the likes, the dislikes, the abilities of the individual. And that I appreciate you bringing that up, because one thing I will say is we're starting to, and I might have said this earlier, we're starting to try to present to individuals and families, because we spent all of the fall of 2022 presenting to all the different DDS stakeholder groups internally to make sure that our staff had an understanding of the process. And now we're making sure that we start talking to individuals and families and answering any questions that are out there. So yeah, yes, job carving is a large piece, and I'm going to make sure that in our future RAC meetings that I actually discuss a little bit more about that. So I appreciate that. But I also just want to give a little bit of information too that you are correct in saying that in our normal services, like or in just regular, like if you're going through ISC and individual supported employment and you're trying to find a job placement, you should be taking into consideration all of the things that I discussed. What makes customized employment a little different is it has very specific deliverables and a very specific process that's followed. One thing that I would say is different is I know for regular job placements and all of that, you're not going to spend a few weeks just getting to know the individual. And within CE, that's a required step. All of the payments for customized employment are based on deliverables, and these deliverables have to be met to make sure that the process is being followed. And staff have to go through a pretty rigorous certification course to make sure that they understand all of these different pieces, including like job carving, how job development and negotiation, and even different things such as the different rights that they have for their individuals, like the ADA and all of those different things. So it's very specifically modified, and it's very, I don't want to use the word intrusive, but it's a little bit more intense than other services where you're getting to know the individual and their whole, holistically. You'll go with them to the places that they go regularly to see what their natural supports are, who they interact with, and find out, what do they like to do? What are they good at? What are the different barriers that are in place? So it's a lot more specifically modified, and there are very intense and specific deliverables that need to be met by the providers while providing the service. So it's much more structured than an ISE would be. And I know that you and I also, we did, I don't know, I think it might have been me. I know we owed each other a
We'll
call.
follow
So
up.
I'll make sure I connect with you. I already wrote it on my list of things to do for tomorrow.
Okay. Gil, any questions?
I don't have any.
All right. Lori, any questions?
Yeah, just one. I'm assuming this could work for all individuals, and of course goes back to staffing, of course. But like once they go through the process and a job is found and started, would it support individuals that need one-to-one support at all times, or is it more geared towards individuals that might need to be in a 3 or 5-to-1 ratio type thing?
I would say that there are no limitations. We do have some individuals who have a one-on-one going through the process right now. Specifically because a lot of times those individuals, in a case we have specifically, they really wanted to go through employment transition services, but none of the providers were we're willing to take the referral because of the specific needs of the individual. So customized employment was kind of the came at a perfect time for this individual because they're now going through the process, and they'll be able to continue that once they're done with once they're placed. We're working to make sure that we have the supports that are needed to help individuals do the process and then when they become employed.
Okay, thank you.
And then Arlene, questions?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the budget, I know you said it didn't affect the budget, but then as Lori mentioned, if you needed a one-to-one job coach, how does that work with the budget? And what you said, like there's 30 agencies so far, and that's across the state. How many are in the Fairfield County area? I don't know.
So there is actually a more than I would have presumed in the Fairfield County area. We do have a good amount. I have a map that has, it's not the best map though, because it shows the central office locations of the providers, because most of the providers are willing to serve individuals for customized employment within about 30 minutes of their central office, but the larger agencies go farther. And part of the reason for that is because a lot of the service takes place at their home, in the community, at the different locations that they go to. So that's an important piece. With the funding, so the whole customized employment process, the funding for customized employment is one-time funds, so it does not go against an individual's budget. For individuals who have a one-on-one, they will have to, we are working out some of our some pieces internally because our goal is to make sure that we're able to support individuals fully, but also make sure that they can continue with their current community programming or any different day service options that they have while they're being employed. We don't want individuals to lose out, but we do have individuals who have gone through the URR process and have been able to maintain their supports afterwards.
Thank you.
All right, and Karen, any questions?
I guess the first question is, are you guys still boycotting Goodwill? Because Goodwill was the only place that would take my son and put up with him. And then we were told, nope, DDS is feuding with Goodwill, so we can't do that anymore. And that's the first question. The second question is, I'm going back to my initial, what if the individual wanted to set up a pet sitting business or whatever? Is that, so it's not with an employer, they're trying to set something up for themselves. Is that?
And that is part of customized employment. And I appreciate you bringing that up too. I'm actually, that's something I should have touched on a little bit too, is we actually do have one specific case where the individual is working to set up their own employment opportunity, because entrepreneurship and self-employment are employment options as well. And that is an outcome of customized employment if that's what the individual is looking for. To answer the question about Goodwill, I do know that we have many Goodwills as providers. We work with them very well, or at least my team does. And I know for a fact that we have one of the Goodwills, and I'm not sure which one. I want to say I don't know which one, but one of the Goodwills, actually, they have staff going through the certification process so that they can deliver customized employment services. I'm pretty sure it's one of the Goodwills with Eastern in the name, but I don't want to give any incorrect information. But I do know that there are staff going through at one of the Goodwills.
So how do I know which one? How do I know which are okay and which are not?
Yeah, so one thing I can share is that online we do have a list of all of the providers who are certified in customized employment supports. I can share actually in the chat if you'd like the direct link to that, and it just gives a list of all of them. I can,
Okay,
if that's helpful, yeah. And I can just really quickly, I can show you because you have it up here. This is like the list. So there is, and this list is changing. We have more providers in the course right now. So when those, sorry, that's my dog. When the new staff graduates in February, we will have more provider staff and new providers on this list.
All right, that's great.
All right, Trevor. Well, we really appreciate your time, and that was very comprehensive. And I see you have some phone calls with some of our council members, so really appreciate that, and they can fill us in on the results of that. So we're now going to move on to the chair's report. My report is going to be very focused on the whole. We've been talking about services and the lack of, people or hiring, etc. So my one little pet project was, why is it that legal guardians cannot be paid in the state? And it was a journey to find out that there's a lot of misinformation about legal guardians being paid or not being paid in the state. So first of all, if the child is under the age of 18, the likelihood of a legal guardian being paid in Connecticut is very, very unlikely. Notice I didn't say it's impossible, but very, 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 I don't know how many varies I can put in there, unlikely, because that is actually, there is a federal regulation that says if you're a parent, guess what? You're responsible for your child. And so you're financially responsible for the child. We're not going to pay you to do things that you're legally, I should say, take out the word financially, I should say legally responsible for your underage child. However, even within the 1915C waiver, which are the different waivers from Medicaid, there is this little exception that says in certain extraordinary circumstances, a legal guardian, i.e. parent of a minor child, can get paid to render services to that child. Now, what might those be? I couldn't tell you, except I'll make something up. And I'm not even sure this is accurate, so don't quote me on this, and I'm certainly no authority. But it would seem that the more intense the medical situation is, the more likely you're going to get approval. So if you're a registered nurse and you have a certain skill set, maybe Karen, something you were talking about, and only you know how to operate this particular machinery or provide feeding tubes or do this or do that, and there is a critical care shortage of that kind of person to watch over the child, well, we're not going to let the child be endangered. So apparently, if you're under the age of 18 and you're a parent and a guardian, you might get approved to be paid to render services to your your child, even though you're legally responsible for it. But you can't just go in and say, I want to be paid to get paid. I want to be paid because there's nobody who can render care. I'm a registered nurse. They got this complex medical situation, and we can't find anybody who can provide any services. So that's the extraordinary circumstance potentially under the age of 18. Let's move on to if you're over the age of 18. As I discovered, everybody was telling me, I shouldn't say everybody, almost everybody was telling me, oh, if you're a legal guardian, you can't get paid because it's a federal law. Let me strike that down right now. There is no federal prohibition against paying a legal guardian. It doesn't exist, right? The state council, people on the state council told me it's a federal law. You got to go to Congress. No, you don't have to go to Congress. It doesn't exist. Number two, can a legal guardian get paid in the state of Connecticut? You might be surprised to learn they can. If the person is over the age of 18, it's a different criteria. Remember, once the child hits 18, you're no longer legally responsible as a parent. You might have moral responsibility, ethical, and all that other stuff, but no legal responsibility. So when the state of Connecticut filed its 1915C waivers, if you read the waiver, it's only 268 pages long, so I invite you to read them. All right. They decide in their waiver who can get paid for rendering the various services that they're going to support. So in some cases, like Trevor just reported, it's going to be an agency. Like, you need to be a certified coach or something. Only they can render certain employment type services or behavioral services. Not any old Joe can render behavioral services. It's got to be an agency, with an LCSW, blah, 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 blah. All right. However, as I was talking with Krista Ostrowski with DSS, lo and behold, in the 1915C waivers, each state has three options. They could say, we're never, ever going to pay a legal guardian. We don't care what they do, what skill set they have. We don't care. We're not paying them. All right. Connecticut did not choose that option. Connecticut chose the option where we'll pay a legal guardian under certain circumstances. Okay. So you can get a legal guardian, who's also a parent, by the way, can get approved to be paid for rendering care under certain circumstances. Now, once again, you can't just go, by the way, you have to go to the prior approval committee. Now, who is the prior approval committee? I don't know. But apparently, and Shannon, I guess you can talk to this. My understanding is, I guess in each region, there's either somebody or some group of people that is considered the prior approval committee. It's like the Star Chamber in the old days of England. Nobody quite knows who they are, what they do, and they meet in secret, I guess, wearing dark robes in the dead of night. Right? Well, they're the prior approval committee. But you can go to the prior approval committee as the legal guardian and the parent, and you can say, under the exceptions that are provided, and they don't detail what those exceptions are, by the way. They don't say you get an exception if you're, if it's a second Tuesday of the month or something. It's case sensitive. It's based on each circumstance, but it's got to be something more than I want to get paid because I want to get paid kind of deal. All right. So you can, as a legal guardian, go to the prior approval committee and ask for an exception and say, hey, based on the circumstances, and if you detail the circumstances, and by the way, the more medically complex the case, I want to say the more likely, this is my impression anyway, the more likely you're going to get approval for it, because that's actually set forth in the exceptions. It talks about medical care or like nursing care, something of that standard, versus you don't have any particular skill set or specific skill set for the individual who you're seeking to get compensated for watching, typically your child, right? By the way, what I'm advocating for with DSS is they pick the third option. So one is they could say nobody ever, by the way, this is up to the state of Connecticut. It is not a federal law. It is not a statute in the state of Connecticut. It's got nothing to do with anybody. This has got to do with DSS. And I assume DDS and the other, as we all say, stakeholders, right? We all say the stakeholders, they opine as to whether or not they're going to pick nobody as a legal guardian ever gets paid. We'll pay a legal guardian, but only in certain circumstances. Or option number 3. Guess what option number 3 is? We'll pay a legal guardian as long as they're qualified. In other words, you pass it back like anybody's qualified, right? If you're going to hire somebody on a self-directed budget, they got to go through a background check. The case manager has to make sure that, you're not hiring some phantom individual out of the ether that's never going to show up, all that. So they got to be qualified in that sense. So they could pick option number 3 and not have a prior approval committee. That's my position. And the thing that I'm saying to them, which doesn't make any sense to me, and maybe it makes sense to somebody on here, is if you're the legal guardian and you give up guardianship and you stay as the parent, you can get paid. So think about that. Child's over the age of 18, they're on a budget, self-directed. Mom and dad are legal guardians. One of them gives up legal guardianship, and now they can get paid. What changed? Except nothing, right? And as I point out, if the person's the legal guardian and the parent, they're held to me in any way. There are more controls and safeguards in that situation than just paying the parent, because the legal guardian is subject to who? The probate court. They're subject to jurisdiction of a judge, of a court, to oversee that they're doing what's in the best interests of their charge. So why wouldn't you want to pay a legal guardian? If you think about it, if you're worried about oversight, well, they have a case manager oversight and a court oversight. Well, now you're encouraging people to give up legal guardianship, and guess what? The court's out of it. Now it's just the case manager. And I'm not saying that they don't do a great job, but they got a lot of cases. So anyway, that's where it stands. So just be aware, you can ask the prior approval committee, if you're the legal guardian, to render certain types of services pursuant to the 1915C waiver, also the 1915K waiver, which is CFC, by the way. And it's right there. In fact, I'm sorry Trevor left. There's also an exception to where the legal guardian can get paid dealing with employment services. So it's somewhat interesting. Anyway, the Developmental Disability Council, we issued a memo, a sense of the council that they should adopt that strategy, DSS or DDS, or it's DSS that applies for it. And I'm going to forward that to Krista. But I just want everybody on here to know, there is no federal law. There is no state statute. Read the waiver. You can apply under certain circumstances and see if the prior approval committee will approve it. And that so ends my chair report. Thank you for
Uh,
listening.
Charles, has anybody tried this?
I don't know. I don't know if anyone.
Too logical,
Yeah, that would
Charles,
be
too
interesting.
logical.
Good man.
Good job, Charles.
Great.
You know,
So,
I
so
don't
Chuck, hey,
try to.
Kate,
Shannon has her hand raised. Off to Shannon.
I just wanted to speak of the prior approval person. In this region, it is the self-determination director, Dory Matusik-Michaels.
So
Michaels
I don't know.
Matusik, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's tried it. I imagine somebody has. I mean, it's not like it's a public, hey, these people did this, right? But once again, I think as with anything, just like a Pratt review, you need to make a case as to why this should be approved. I'm assuming you don't go to Pratt and say, hey, give me more money because I just want more money. Right? That's not going to get approved, right? You got to give them specific circumstances. What's the concern? Why do you need more hours? Why do you need this? Why do you need that? Et cetera, et cetera. And just like in a way, a court case, you build it up. So one of the things, by the way, DSS is not unsympathetic to this. They recognize there's a staff shortages. Other states have adopted let's pay the legal guardian. I think it's form over substance at this point, where it's silly to say to the parent, "Oh, you're the legal guardian and the parent. Oh, we're not going to pay you. Oh, you're only the parent now. We'll pay you." I still don't get what changed. I mean, I understand there may be this conflict issue that somebody's brought up. I'm still trying to understand what the conflict is. And then the other thing is, how many legal guardians want to get paid, right? I mean, that's number one. Number two, to go through this once again, there's a court overseeing what a legal guardian does. Why wouldn't you want why wouldn't you want that control to be there in addition to case managers? Because now you're just going on case managers. And Shannon, off to the person who's doing this, if you get rid of the prior approval committee, I don't want to say less work for you, but that frees up time and effort to do other things than worry about approving whether or not a guardian is going to get paid. Leave it up to the probate court to do it.
Was there any discussion about going back and forth on it? Like if you literally can't find somebody to go to the prior approval committee, and then when you find somebody, get off it?
Oh, you mean that is, you can't find somebody in other words, your legal guardian, you can't find anyone to watch it, like during COVID, right? They waived
They waived it, right?
They waived it. They said, okay, well, we can't find anyone to watch. We can't find anyone to render care. Now I finally found someone, thank God. Well, what you would probably do in that circumstance is you would probably simply hire the other person, but you would probably stay on the budget. Because if the other person leaves, right, now you're back to square one. And as I find out, and I think one of the issues, I think I hear this, doesn't matter where I go. And it's like, the more you find out, the more you realize you don't know. Like for example, just parenthetically, I was told you can't work more than 8 hours in a day. Like a person can't work, an aide cannot render more than 8 hours of service in a day. Not true. Can't work more than 40 hours in a week, but they can work up to 12-hour shifts. So I was told by my case manager, like, ooh, that's news, right? Because up to now we've been working on this 8-hour deal. Well, where's that information? Yeah. In other words, as the consumer, where does that person find out that information? But you just kind of have to keep asking questions and asking more questions and asking more questions, and and you just find this stuff out. Anyway, so if you have a case, I would suggest, I'll be happy to send you the relevant section of the 1915C waiver that talks about it. And one of the things that you're going to find, I don't want to use the word troubling. When you first read it, on first impression, you might find it troubling language as to how you'd get an exception. Because it talks about an exception where you're providing something outside of what a normal family unit would provide. It talks about this normal family unit providing services. And so now we start to think about, well, of course I feed my child, right? Of course I do this and that. But I want you to think about it differently. Think about what you do for your 18-year-old plus child, right? So for example, like just using my daughter, I mean, I need to wipe her butt, right? How many other 18-year-old childs do she can't toilet correctly and she can't clean herself correctly. So her aide or I or someone has to do that for her. Well, think of your neurotypical children. Do you go in and help them with their toileting? I think that's what they're talking about. They're talking about a normal 18-year-old neurotypical, what do you do for them? Right? Whereas, if it's outside that realm, I think you can make that argument that this isn't a normal thing to do for an 18-year-old.
So Chuck, as you guys are pushing this stone uphill, I would hope that it gets out of the realm of this focus on the medical bit that you started with, because I think that's a chunk of it. And for sure, to the extent that someone has a complex medical situation with their child, and especially if they have specific skills, that's great. But I bet the bulk of the situations are all about a kid who just can't be left home alone. It's as simple as their intellectual disability and that they can't reliably be home alone safely. And so that's it. I've got to stay with them because they can't stay home alone. They're 25 or 35 or 45 and they can't stay home alone. So I'm staying home with them. So that needs to be made room for most families who want or need to take advantage, or not take advantage of, but who want or need this option. So
I agree. The reason I highlighted that at the beginning is if you're going to go for an exception now, I always believe in going for the easy, if there's an easy way to get the exception, do the easy way.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a complex medical case and you're a nurse. I mean, I'm giving you the ideal case. I said, if someone went to the private approval committee and said, hey, I'm a registered nurse, my child has a feeding tube and this and that, and needs, 24/7 monitoring with seizures and blah, 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 blah. And I can't find anyone to hire. That's going to be a pretty tough denial for the prior approval committee. All right.
Understood. I'm talking about you guys as you're trying to push this into a better place. I just think
that's the one that says
that's going to be
matter.
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
matter what the circumstances are.
Yeah.
As you can get paid as the legal guardian as long as you're qualified. You meet all the other parameters the person needs.
Because I think that's the bigger need and probably the more common need. So anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm pushing for.
Yeah.
But right now, the way things stand now, if you're trying to get paid, well, you got an easier case if you got medical competency.
Sure.
The next is non-medical competency. You need to build the safety issue, or I need to quit my job. I don't have work. Now I got to go on, Snap and Husky and this and that. Why were we doing that? Which is a bizarre result on top of that.
Right.
So just want everybody to realize you might be able to get paid as a legal guardian. Where it stands now, we're trying to get it to make it easier, not harder. But you got to go to the private approval.
Yeah, if you could send that information out, Chuck, that would be great. I'd appreciate that.
Sure.
Too.
Good stuff.
It'd be interesting to note how many parents would be interested in it. I think the initial thing is, yeah, everybody. But once you've been doing this a long time, no. If you could find a place where your kid could go, or a person where he's happy and engaged and whatever, I think that it's really only in the most extraordinary circumstances that a parent would say, I'm not going to get anybody else. I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life.
Well, I think it's going to particularly help single parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to, by the way, I think it's going to particularly help female single parents. Right? Mom is typically the caregiver, right? I mean, it's just no great secret there. And what are they going to do? Now they can't find it. Can they hold down a job? Do they have an employer who's sympathetic to the needs of their schedule with a child with a disability, and they can't come into work today? They can't do this. They can't do that. Or we're going to pay them to do what they do anyway. And that way they can stay at home, render care for the child. And all the studies, by the way, that I provided to Krista show that family caregivers tend to render better care than non-family caregivers. oh, there's a shock. I mean, it's like like that's a news bulletin or something, you know. So you can see I'm just kind of like, why is this? Didn't already happen? I don't know. But anyway, we're going to continue, as you say, Marina, push the rock up the hill and see if we can get it to go down the other side eventually and go that way. Well, that ends my report. On to back to Shannon for the director's report.
Hi, I'll be quick. Now that we have our positions filled, one of the tasks we're doing, Tyrone and I are working with the helpline on revamping some systems there to make it more friendly, and return calls back to the families, follow up, moving cases off the helpline quicker, so individuals can get services in place. There had been a backlog on that, so we've been busy with that. I'm still getting out there visiting. I'm actually going this weekend to another respite center. The elderly caregiver initiative is still occurring. One of the issues, and it kind of falls back to what Karen was talking initially, we're granting funding, but finding the service providers to provide those services. We filled, we're in the process, we filled one of our transition advisor positions in the helpline. We are now in the process of filling 2 of our psychologist positions in the helpline. We still have 12 case management vacancies in the West region, which was mostly due to retirements. We've brought some people back for temporary retiree positions to provide case management until we can permanently fill those positions. Case management position interviews have concluded, so I'm hoping in the next couple weeks we'll be able to fill those positions permanently, and that will be extremely helpful, because right now we're just kind of piecemealing services together. We continue to deal with the ongoing battle of emergencies. It seems like it's daily where someone is landing in the hospital from a family home, or even from a provider, trying to find placements for those folks. And we have the hospitals, obviously calling to advocate to get the individuals out because they're ready to be discharged. Calls going to the commissioner's office left and right, and trying to manage all that, which is quite different than the past. We were not seeing those extensive emergencies that we're seeing now. We're working on transformation project with ARPA funding. Agencies are applying for the projects to do, which ultimately would mean moving those that are in homes, group homes, ready to move on to less restrictive environments, coming up with some creative options around that. The West region didn't have a huge outpouring of providers interested in doing it. Some of the feedback is, again, it's around staffing. They've got to concentrate on what they're doing now before they move on to doing more things. I think that's pretty much it, just in a nutshell. I don't know if there's any questions.
But Marina, any questions? Gil, any questions?
No, good.
Lori, any questions?
No.
Arlene? Karen? No. All right. Well, that was the director's report. Anyone have any new business? Hearing none. I don't think we have any old business. Is anyone from the public on? I don't. Eunice, do we have anybody
No.
called in, or anyone from the public?
No.
Not hearing Eunice, but I assume if there was somebody from the public, she'd let us know.
She said no, Chuck.
No. Okay. And Eunice, by the way, can you send me an email distribution list? I tried to send you that whole diatribe I just kind of talked about, etc. But it got bounced back. I think because the attachments are too big. I tried to send it to you. So just send me the individuals' emails, and I'll just forward it on to them as a group. So with that, I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Good meeting, Chuck. I move to adjourn.
All right, second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, Tyrone, Shannon, Timothy, thank you all for joining us today and listening to us.
No,
Thank
it
you.
was great. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Good meeting, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye
Take
now.
care.
Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.